At the beginning of Parshas Bamidbar, the Torah tells us about the counting of all of the different Shvatim. The Torah tells us, Vayu b'nei Reuven, and the children of Reuven, Bechor Yisrael, the eldest of Yisrael, Todosam Mishchosam V'Yisabosam, B'Mispar Shemus Gilgulosam, Kol Zachar B'Nesim Shnav Mal Kol Yitzei Tzava. This is the counting of everybody that was 20 years and older. And there doesn't seem to be anything particularly remarkable about this pasuk, except that Reuven is first. And you might say, okay, of course Reuven is first, because Reuven is the Bechor, he is the firstborn. But as much as Reuven is the firstborn, it's not so simple, because his status of being the Bechor seems to have been something that has been taken away from him. He no longer really possessed that status, as we already learned back in Sefer Parshas, that Yaakov Avinu told him that because Pachas Kamayim Al Tosar, because what you did was wrong when it came to moving Bilha's bed after the passing of Rachel, that he was going to lose that status. So why here does it refer to him as the Bechor? And the Sforno makes a fascinating comment that requires seeing one other perush from the Sforno. Says the Sforno, Bechor Yisrael. Why was he called Bechor Yisrael? Shelo nafal mimaloso bedine shamayim. That even though Yaakov changed and said, you are not considered to be the Bechor anymore, bedine shamayim, from the perspective of heaven, he did not lose that position. Why? Mipnei tshuvaso. Because of the tshuva that he did. Where do you see that he did tshuva? That even though between man, Yaakov, he lost his status, the pasuk tells us after the episode with him moving the bed of Bilhah, that the children of Yaakov were still 12, and that he still had the Bechor of Reuven. And that brings us to Bereshis Lamed Hey Chav Gimel, where the Torah tells us, B'nei Leah Bechor Yaakov, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. That right after the previous pasuk has said that Vayishka bes Bilhah Pilagesh Aviv, that again he acted inappropriately when it came to the bed of Bilhah. Still, B'nei Yaakov Shnei Masar, he had 12 sons, and it calls him the Bechor. So why does it call him the Bechor? The Sforno says something very interesting. Again, the Sforno says in our parsha that it was called Bechor Yisrael because of the tshuva that he did. But where did he find that he did tshuva? Says the Sforno in Bereshis, that even though Yisrael heard what happened, he still considered the 12 children. He didn't write him off. Why? He knows. He was confident that it must be that Reuven did tshuva right away. That was Reuven. That was who Reuven was, the greatness of Reuven, that he does tshuva right away. Bechor Yaakov Reuven, says the Sforno, says the Sforno that the process of tshuva is so strong, and a process of tshuva which he knows is going to be la'alter, which is an immediate reaction, is a different form of tshuva which automatically goes in front of the kisei hakavod. And what the Sforno is teaching us is that yes, tshuva is something which is certainly important and something that we firmly believe in. But it sounds what the Sforno is telling us is that there's a special aspect and power to tshuva when we do it immediately after we realize we did something wrong. There's the tshuva where we do something wrong, and then months later, before Yom Kippur, we start thinking, we make a calculation, we say, oh, I shouldn't have done that, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But then there's that moment where we do something, and immediately afterwards, we are distraught and broken by what we did, and we immediately do tshuva. That is an extraordinarily powerful tshuva, and B'dinei Shamayim, it works right away. And that is what Yaakov Avinu saw as Reuven would have. So yes, Yaakov had to make a calculation amongst the sons, B'dinei Adam, and therefore he made a calculation that your pachas kamayim al tosar, your reactions are too strong. You can't be the Bechor down here. But he was positive that he still maintained that status of Bechor when it comes to Hashem's relationship, because he knew that with that quality, he also did tshuva. And the tshuva that's done la'alter, as the psukim say, if one pasuk tells us that he made a mistake, the next pasuk says that Yaakov still had 12 children, and the next one still calls him the Bechor, is because he understood the power of tshuva. And therefore, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was counting them, the count which is taking place, Moshe is doing the calculation, but it is for Hashem, because as Rashi tells us the opening, because he loves his children so much he counts them, Reuven is still called the Bechor. because he did this powerful tshuva. Such an important concept to realize that if as soon as we focus, as soon as we realize we make a mistake, if we can fix it right away, if we don't sit back and wait, that is a different form of tshuva, and one that is accepted by HaKadosh Baruch Hu immediately when we realize our mistakes, and that we're able to hopefully move forward and repair that relationship with a tshuva that is going to be immediately accepted.